This is Cast of Wonders, the young adult fiction podcast featuring stories of the fantastic. Welcome. I'm Amy Brennan, editorial assistant and slush reader at Cast of Wonders and your host for today. Today's episode is The Day I Didn't Get a Pet Nebula by Effie Seiberg. It was previously published in the Drabblecast in April 2021. Effie Seiberg is a fantasy and science fiction writer. Her stories can be found in Women Destroy Science Fiction special edition of Lightspeed magazine, Galaxy's Edge, Analog, and Fireside Fiction amongst others, as well as on Podcastle and Escape Pod. Effie lives in San Francisco. She likes to make sculpted cakes and bad puns. You can follow her on Twitter at @Effies, or read more of her work at effieseiberg.com. This story is narrated by Alethea Contis. New York Times best-selling author Alethea Contis is a princess, a voice actress, and a force of nature. She is responsible for creating the epic fairy tale fantasy realm of Ariland, and dabbling in a myriad of other worlds beyond. Her award-winning writing has been published for multiple age groups across all genres. Host of Princess Alethea's Fairy Tale Rants and Princess Alethea's Travelling Sideshow every year at DragonCon, Alethea also narrates for ACX, IGMS, Escape Pod, Pseudopod, and Cast of Wonders. Born in Vermont, Alethea currently resides on the space coast of Florida with her teddy bear Charlie. Find out more about Princess Alethea and her magic, wonderful world in which she lives here on her Patreon page, patreon.com, Princess Alethea. And now, we've a tale to tell.
The Day I Didn't Get a Pet Nebula by Effie Seiberg. Narrated by Alethea Contis. On the day I turned 9, I didn't get a pet nebula. I really wanted one, just like the one Shelley had, and I'd been talking about it forever, so Dad could have the time to save up for the one in the pawn shop. And I'm not usually patient enough to talk about anything that long. I told him how responsible I was and how I could take it for walks and trim its dust wisps and everything. I made him breakfast when he got home from his shift a bunch of times and even did the dishes after to prove how responsible I was. "Come on, kiddo, you know that's not possible," he said, 10 rotation cycles before my birthday. We were at the wobbly kitchen table, and he was helping me with my physics homework after dinner. So everything still smelled like tacos with neutron star shavings and spray cheese. The chapter was all about distortions of space-time, cosmic strings and black holes and whatnot. He leaned his head on one tentacle, like he was too tired to hold it up on its own. Even his work shirt looked tired, like the frayed thin patches were struggling to hold his tentacles in. A pet nebula isn't happening. "But Dad, I'll be 9, which is totally enough to take care of one. Haven't I been responsible lately?" I rearranged my face into the most mature expression I could think of. "You have, and I'm really proud of you. But most nebulas keep making stars, and then you have a house full of stars to look after. It's not like you can neuter a nebula, kiddo, and we don't really have the room. Even a planetary nebula that doesn't make stars needs more space than we have to be happy. You wouldn't want to have an unhappy nebula, right?" He obviously didn't get it. I could totally keep a nebula happy, that was the whole point. And if it was about money, what if I add my own money? Grandma always sends me some, and we could use that to... "Kiddo, you need to save your money for something more important. Let's get back to the homework and do problem number 4 before I gotta get to work, huh? Oh, and I'll be late coming home. I'm taking on an extra shift. Now, let's see here. What kind of space-time warping will occur when 2 cosmic strings are parallel?" I let him walk me through the rest of the problem set, but I hadn't given up. He was probably taking on extra shifts to pay for my nebula. He'd done that before when I was little and really wanted a comet ride. He denied it up and down, gave all the reasons why it wasn't gonna happen. And then for my birthday, we went to the petting zoo and I got to ride a sun-grazing comet. So really, I thought the nebula was a sure thing. Every rotation cycle after school, I'd take a detour home to Miss June's pawn shop. Miss June kept the nebula in the window where it would scurry from side to side, its wispy pink and teal and orange body filling up with stars that would occasionally plop out and roll around the window display. Someone had pawned it about 5 cycle clusters ago, which was really lucky because I never thought I'd get one that cheap. Not that it was actually cheap, but more affordable than usual. You didn't need to be at Shelley levels of rich to get one. 4 cycles after my birthday, I was standing at the pawn shop window after school as usual, my tentacles up on the glass and my breath fogging it up in front of me. The nebula squirmed around like it did when it was extra active and extruded out an adorable little green protostar. The star rolled to the side of the window, bounced off a piece of dark energy and hit a globular cluster straight in the middle, which made the cluster stars scatter and knock over a pair of cosmic strings. The crash was loud. I would definitely have to housebreak it once I got it home. "Hey, kiddo," called out Miss June from behind the register when she noticed me standing there. "You gonna take this nebula off my tentacles sometime soon? It's making a mess." "I think Dad's gonna get it for me for my birthday. It's next cycle group, so not that long," I told her, and she smiled. 2 rotation cycles before my birthday, my dad sat with me to look over the bits I'd gotten wrong on my physics homework. He had bags under all 8 of his eyes, and I could tell that getting up early to go over it with me before he went on the late shift was hard for him. 78 on homework is pretty good, Dad, I said. See, it even says great improvement on top. It shows you how hard I'm working. You sure are, honey. I'm proud of you. He gave a tired smile and wiped a tentacle over his face as though he were trying to keep himself from falling right back to sleep. Proud enough to get me a nebula? I gave him a huge grin. We talked about this, kiddo. We don't have the room, and nebulas are expensive. More faking me out. I was getting a nebula for sure, especially with all these extra shifts he'd been working. I'm doing great, though. I don't need to review this now. We're still gonna go over the ones you missed, he said. It's still important. I knew for a fact that Shelley's parents didn't make her sit with them all this extra time to go over homework. As long as she passed her classes, that was good enough. Lucky Shelley. But at least, I'd thought, I'd soon have a pet nebula like she did. I studied really hard, and the next rotation cycle had my physics test. It felt okay, like the stuff we'd gone over was sticking in my head. And then, on the start of my birthday cycle, my dad woke me up, opened my dark matter curtains, and brought me banana pancakes in bed. He gave me 20 credits from my grandma and a box covered in polka-dotted wrapping paper. And inside was a moon. A cruddy old moon. Dented and pocked with craters and shedding moon dust everywhere. Tied into the box so it wouldn't start orbiting around anything. Happy birthday, he said. You've been so responsible lately I figured you could handle it. My face fell. Oh, thanks. The dust tickled my proboscis, and I just barely managed to not sneeze. I know you're disappointed, kiddo. He sat on the bed next to me. But I told you, a nebula wasn't going to happen. We can't afford it. Moons are really cool, though. I had a moon when I was about your age. I named it Rocky, and it followed me around everywhere I went. You should take it to school to show your friends. Sure, like that was ever gonna happen. When Shelley got her nebula, she brought it to class and gave stars out to everyone. I lost my star when I tripped on the way home, and it rolled into a black hole, which I was still mad about. The point was, what was I gonna do? Hand out little moon rocks at school? Nobody wants moon rocks. Just be sure to come home in time for us to go over your physics homework, he said. I grunted in response. A moon. A stupid, crappy, dusty moon that didn't have wispy, beautiful colors, didn't make stars, didn't want to cuddle, nothing. All it did was orbit. I was in a bad mood all day at school. I was grumpy when my lunch voucher got me a pizza with gamma radiation topping, even though I like pizza with gamma radiation. I was grumpy when I got an 85 on my physics test, and when I thought about how proud Dad would be, I got even grumpier. Shelley got a 65. That sucks. I'm sorry, I told her, but she only shrugged sadly and said, "Whatever, it's not like my parents will care. Besides, it's not like they'll be around enough to even find out about it." And for some reason, that made me grumpier still, though I couldn't quite figure out why. I walked home from school and didn't even pet my neighbor's comet through the hole in the fence like I usually did. Instead, I grabbed a chunk of ice that had broken off the comet's back and tossed it on the sidewalk in front of me with a scowl, then kicked it along as I kept going. Eventually, I wound up passing the black hole, the same one I lost Shelley's star to. Stupid black hole, sitting there and sucking everything good into it. Even a star's better than a cruddy old moon. And anyway, you never find a black hole in Shelley's neighborhood all the way out on an outer galaxy arm. Why couldn't my life be more like Shelley's? Frustrated, I kicked the piece of ice I'd been playing with into the black hole's gravity well. It made a satisfying zip sound right before it crossed the event horizon and stretched itself out into a long, icy streamer. Kinda neat. I looked behind me and there was nobody to yell at me, so I looked around to see what else I could fling into there. In went another chunk of ice, then another. I found some alpha radiation on someone's front lawn and bounced it off some electrons I found in my pocket. Took a few tries until I got it to bounce into the black hole. Then I tossed in the electrons. None of it made me feel any better, though. It was so unfair. Why should people like Shelley have all the luck? Getting nebulas and having a pool in their backyard and going on fancy vacations to different galactic clusters. Why couldn't that be me? I was stuck with a crappy moon, and crappy vacations that were just staying with my grandma, and crappy sneakers with holes in the toes and soles that flapped. I've always had sneakers that were falling apart. The motto was, if you can duct tape them back together, they're still fine. I sat down on the sidewalk, untied my sneakers, and eased them off my pseudopods. They stunk, and even the duct tape was starting to wear through. I tossed them into the black hole, too. Their laces waved behind them until zip! They straightened out and stretched longer and longer as the shoes got sucked in. Good riddance. For a split second, I thought someone was watching me, and maybe I was going to get in trouble for tossing stuff in a black hole, but when I looked around, I couldn't see anybody, so I kept going. I dumped out my backpack and let everything roll around. The moon thudded onto the sidewalk when I opened the side zipper. I guess Dad had slipped it into my bag this morning when I wasn't looking. The whole bag pocket was now gray with moon dust, and so was everything else. The moon gave a quiver and started to roll towards me like it was considering orbiting. I was sick of it. I was sick of everything. I started throwing more stuff into the black hole. Dusty gray pencils, a dusty gray apple I didn't eat at lunch, my dusty gray 85% math test, which made a crinkling sound before it hit the event horizon and was stretched into oblivion. Stupid moon. What was even the point? I didn't want it orbiting me, letting everyone see that I was forced to get a crappy moon instead of an awesome nebula. I picked it up and turned it around, thinking I could maybe bowl it into the black hole. As I was trying to get the perfect grip, a splotch of icy sea melted a little in my tentacles, combining with the moon dust to form a thin mud. Ugh. But there, on the back, was something I hadn't noticed. Carved into the surface out of 1,000,000 pinprick craters were the words, "There's always light in the darkness, even if you can't see it yet. May the phases of this moon light your way. Love, Dad." The writing was a little wobbly, which meant he'd done it himself. He must have gotten hundreds or even thousands of meteorites to hit at just the right angle, one by one. When had he even found time to do it? Between his extra shifts? No wonder he had so many bags under his eyes. And suddenly I realized Shelley didn't have that. Her parents were always traveling for work, and she always talked about how they loved to play meteor ball and spent a lot of time at the club without her. They didn't really pay a lot of attention to her. They would never put in the kind of time my dad did, like the way he sat with me for my physics homework every single night to make sure I really got it. My dad actually cared how I did on my physics test. And then I realized I'd thrown my physics test into a black hole, and he would want to see that. And then I realized I'd thrown my sneakers in too, and this was the stupidest thing I'd done in maybe forever. Crap. I had to figure out a way to get it back. But how? Nothing comes out of a black hole but Hawking radiation. I still had my birthday money from Grandma, though. So I stuffed everything that hadn't gone into the black hole back into my backpack and ran in my socks, skipping around stray planets in a big dark energy puddle until I got to the pawn shop. I crossed my tentacles and there they were. 2 cosmic strings still glittering in the window. They gently hummed and pulsed. I tried not to look at the nebula, which was still wiggling in the window between them and looking all cute next to its little 100-credit price tag. I looked for a price on the cosmic strings and didn't see one. "Hey, kid, happy birthday. It's now, right?" said Miss June, always cheerful from behind her register. "You look too blue to be here for that nebula. To be honest with you, it's not worth the hassle." I could tell she was being nice. Obviously, nebulas are worth the hassle. I mean, they're nebulas. "So I'll bite. What you here for?" The light winked off the bifocals that only covered 4 of her eyes. How much are the 2 cosmic strings in the window?" 40 credits for the pair. Not selling them as singles. You lose all the value that way. My 20 wasn't enough. And even if she were selling them as singles, it wouldn't do me no good. I could have crumpled down and cried right there. "Why so glum, chum?" she asked, leaning over the counter. I sighed. "I guess I can't afford 'em then. I only got 20. She looked me up and down. "Tell you what, kiddo, I'll give you a special birthday deal if you want it. $20 and a piece of collateral, and I'll let you rent 'em. Bring 'em back within, say, a cycle group, and you get your collateral back, no interest. How about that?" I could have hugged her, but then I realized I didn't have anything to put down for collateral. Nothing but my moon. I couldn't think of anything else, 'cause it's not like she'd want my busted old jacket or backpack or anything. I didn't expect it, but I really didn't like the idea of leaving my moon with Miss June. Like, it was a piece of my dad or something, which is stupid because obviously my dad isn't made of moons. But what else could I do? So I fished it out from my bag and held it for a moment, then plunked it down along with the 20. I grabbed the 2 cosmic strings from the window, careful to keep them crossing each other and not parallel, and ran. Back at the black hole, I set 1 cosmic string to root firm in the ground so it wouldn't move, and slowly maneuvered the other string until it went parallel to the first one on the other side of the black hole. They were weirdly slippery to set up, and it took a few tries until I got it right. But as soon as they snapped into parallel position, space-time between the 2 strings warped and started to tick backwards. I saw myself running backwards to the direction of the pawn shop, and then several minutes later saw myself running backwards back to the black hole. Then my physics test unflung itself from the black hole. Next came the apple, some pencils, and my shoes. I waited until my shoes were back on old me, then yanked the 2 strings out of position. Old me looked at new me for a split second before old me disappeared. My old backpack disappeared too because new me was still holding it, or the newer version of it, which was weirdly heavy. Anyway, everything else clattered to the ground. I picked everything up, put my shoes back on, and ran back to the pawn shop. Miss June looked at me weird for a beat or 2, then looked like she figured out what had happened. "So I sold you the cosmic strings, huh? And you're bringing them back because you rented them to me for 20 credits and my moon for collateral. I guess I got the moon back?" I checked my backpack and yep, there it was in the side pocket. And it occurred to me to check my pocket. And there were the credits too. I grabbed them and gave them to Miss June. "Thanks for your honesty, kiddo," said Miss June as she arranged the 2 cosmic strings back in the window display, careful to keep them from going parallel. The nebula snuggled up to one of them and rubbed its side on it. Man, nebulas were cute. Maybe I could get one some other birthday, or when I grew up. "Did you get what you need, honey?" she asked. Yeah, I said, reaching back into the side zipper compartment and brushing my suckers on the moon's pockmark inscription. It felt good having it back, like something had been off and hadn't clicked into position until just now. Yeah, thanks, I said. I've got exactly what I need. And I went home to show my dad my physics test.
This reminds me of me so much when I was the same age. I wanted a pony, desperately. There was a field right behind our house that I was sure that the owner would let us use. I'd read so many pony books that had things like that happen. Plus 2 of my friends had ponies. The fact that those 2 friends had quite wealthy parents, whereas Dad was solid working middle class as a station officer at the local fire station, and Mum only worked part-time, so they probably couldn't afford for one of their children to take up a very expensive hobby, didn't really occur to me. They also knew me better than I knew myself. The care of said pony would have eventually devolved onto my mother, as my pet bunny had beforehand, and no matter how much I begged, they stood their ground. I could have riding lessons, but I could not have a pony of my own. I was about as grumpy about that as our protagonist is about their moon. But, like our protagonist, I always had my parents there for me if I ever needed anything. Advice, help with homework, love in unstinting measures. My friends might have had ponies and got to go to Disney World. I still want to go to Disney World, to be fair. But they didn't really have that close relationship with caring parents that I had. And while it took me much longer to realise it than our protagonist, that's more important than any material thing you could possibly desire. Join us again soon. We love bringing you the best audio fiction week after week, but we can't do it without your support. Your donations pay our authors, our narrators, our servers, and our staff. Please consider supporting us with a monthly donation through either PayPal or Patreon. You can also review us on Apple Podcasts, request us on Spotify, and consider the stories we publish for award consideration. There are lots of ways you can help. Join the discussion on the EA forum, forum.escapeartists.net, or the EA Discord. Visit us on Twitter at Cast of Wonders. Come say hello. Cast of Wonders is a production of Escape Artists Incorporated and is brought to you by Editor Catherine Inskip, Assistant Editors Andrew K. Ho and Carissa Sluss, Editorial Assistant Amy Brennan, Associate Editors Cami Adams, Tanya Adelot, Frianne Bowley, Amy Brennan, Alicia Caparaso, Umaira Hussain, Somto Ihiswe, Cup Jacob, Amanda Kong, Ray O, Samuel Poots, Rin Richmond, Emma Smales, and Denise Sudell. Our community manager is Denise Sudell, and our audio producer is Jeremy Carter. Our episodes are released under the Creative Commons Attribution, Non-Commercial, No Derivatives 4.0 International License. That means you can download it or listen to the episode on any device you like, but you can't change it or sell it. Our theme music, Appeal to Heavens, is by Alexei Nov, and available from Promo DJ or his Facebook page. Thank you for listening.